talk title this morning is We Are Transformers. And I think if we put a title on Kathy's talk today instead of black and red, we would say it is We Are Transformers. And how do you choose to show up as a transformer in life? So as we go through this talk, I'm going to invite you to consider ideas within your own life. I do that quite frequently because I firmly believe that if you come to church every Sunday and you don't carry it with you through the week, then what good was it? So as we think about our own lives, there are so many aspects to consider. What is calling you today that you would like to transform? Anything at all about yourself and your life that you would like to transform. And that includes the way that you show up in the greater world. How can I affect that? Because indeed, we all have an effect on all that is, because we are part of it. So as we look at transformers, I don't know if any of you had these as kids or if they were even around when we were kids. I know I didn't have one. But they are, if you're not familiar, as a toy, they are something that you buy and it's in a shape, maybe say like a person or a robot person. And then you manipulate it around, and next thing you know, lo and behold, you have not a robot, but a car. Not a real car, a toy car, but one that you could use on the ground. And you can transform it into many things. Well, we are like that. And yet our transformations involve personal and conscientious effort. They don't just, well, they are happening because we're always transforming, like it or not. But we have the ability to utilize the power of our own mind to assist that transformation and to affect it. And so one of the things we begin by doing is self-reflection, which I've already asked you to do. Consider what it is that you would like to transform, and then look at what are your goals for that. You can't just say, well, I want to have more money. Okay, and I know I'm done because I've already decided. No, you have to set that goal for yourself. How much do you want? Do you want it in your bank account? Do you want it in your retirement account? How are you going to get that money? Will the same habits that you have today create whatever it is that is your desire, that is your goal, that is your desire for the effect at the end? And how does your mindset have an effect on this also? Because once we have the mindset that corresponds, then we have to activate it. And we activate it through prayer, treatment, meditation, self-analysis. We each do it in a little different way based on who we are and how we think. But we do it through our thought. And then we have to take the action to follow it up. We don't transform ourselves or a situation by continuing patterns that we've already been engaging in for days or weeks or months or years or decades. We have proof positive that those don't work anymore. Or did they ever? We transform ourselves and our life and implement the actions required to achieve a goal by creating new patterns of mind, transforming. The Bible says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Renewing of old patterns and beliefs and mindset that you have now decided when you chose your theme today that you were going to contemplate you are making a conscious decision that you no longer wish to live with whatever that is in that situation. So we have to establish new behaviors, and they have to be behaviors that will harvest the outcome that we desire. It's an internal shift. And what it does is bridges our goals, our desires, places them into law to create the effect that we want. It's called transformation. And when we engage in this, we can do it in such a significant way that it is life-affirming. Not only for us, for ourselves, when we get that, oh my gosh, look what I've done. But also people around you say, what's new about you today? Or, oh, I noticed that you're doing this instead of that. It's life-affirming, and it has lasting effects. So we identify the limiting beliefs. We cultivate a mindset that attracts and impresses into law that of our desire. And it has an impact on our entire belief system. It's interactive with other belief systems that we now can see. Ooh, and this too. So let's plunge head first. Are you willing? Are you willing to plunge head first into this? Yes?
Yes.
Oh, I need a big yes if
Yes.
you are.
Yes.
Okay, yes, you're willing. I'm not going to ask you to jump rope or anything. For those of you that were here last week, you've got to jump rope, and that was the talk. I'm not going to ask you to jump rope. Just going to ask you to surrender, to open your mind, and to become a receptor of possibilities. To know and to firmly believe that during this talk today, at some point, something is going to reveal through you or to you in such a way that later on you go, oh my goodness, I got this great idea. Don't know where it came from, but maybe it was from Sunday service. I want you to become such open receptors that at the end of our time together today, each one of us has realized goals and shifts and the actions necessary to realize our highest potential. So, here we go. There is a book series, and I thought everyone was probably familiar with it, but I guess it's just because I'm a teacher. Maybe some of you are. Are you familiar with the Magic School Bus series? Anybody else besides me? Yeah. Oh, good. We're the young ones here today, right? So, I will explain a little more about it than I had intended. In this book, it is a teacher, an elementary school teacher who teaches science, and her name's Ms. Frizzle, and she is eccentric. And every science lesson, or every book, she dives in head first to whatever it is. If they're studying the body and the organs and the systems of the body and how everything relates and interacts, she takes the kids right on a field trip inside the body, and they explore it. Well, I'm telling you, children will learn a lot, and I'd love to leave it there, but the truth is that all these systems that she explores, like inside the earth and out in the universe and the solar system and the body and the cells, I learned a lot. Because it's exploratory, it's exciting, it's interesting. It's an interesting way to explore. Well, today we don't have Ms. Frizzle, but I have my own personal Mr. Frizzle, known as Reverend David. And he is going to take us back in time to explore the interrelatedness and balance of a very delicate subject, life.
Yeah, I just happened to think about the fact that I'm actually Mr. Fizzle today, and I'm glad you said that. You know that transformation and evolution and change are essential parts of life. And I was thinking, you know, about once a month, our topic is really basically around change, I think. And we say that quite often, that change is the only constant. But I was thinking about that a lot this week when I was looking at our topic, that we are transformers. And I want to make a disclaimer right here and now. I'm not Mr. Fizzle. I'm not a scientist or a microbiologist or a cosmologist or a cosmetologist either, or a chemist. But I've read some books about this, and I remember a few years ago I read a book, The Web of Life by Fritjof Capra, and it really was amazing to me, the whole process of life and the history of the earth. And so I read a couple more books about that. So, like, I'm not an expert on it, but this is the way I basically understand the process, and I think it's fascinating. I hope I can relay some of that to you. Scientists pretty much agree that the Earth started about 4.5 billion years ago. That's a B with a billion years ago. And I thought, well, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference to me if it's a billion or a million. That was a heck of a long time ago. And at that time, it was a molten ball of lava. And it took about 1 billion years for it just to start cooling down. And as the Earth cooled, about 1 billion years later, primary elements of bacteria began to form. And those bacteria are made of hydrogen and nitrogen. And eventually the hydrogen began to absorb the nitrogen, to the extent that eventually there was an imbalance and something needed to happen, or otherwise it would be unsustainable. Well, as the Earth began to cool, the smoke cleared, the volcanoes slowed down a bit, and the light and heat of the sun was actually able to reach the surface of the Earth. And we know that when we combine sunlight and hydrogen, we get photosynthesis. And photosynthesis created a blue-green bacteria, which was basically an early plant-based life form. And one of the unique things about blue-green bacteria was, as a byproduct, it released oxygen into the atmosphere. Well, remember, this is a plant-based environment, and oxygen is toxic to plants. It's something they release. The same way we release carbon dioxide, and we can't live in an environment of carbon dioxide, plants cannot live in a total environment of oxygen. So oxygen became so prominent and prevalent in the environment that it was killing all the hydrogen and all the plant life at that time. And it came to the point where it was basically going to extinguish all of life on the planet. Fortunately, because it was so prevalent, some of the other elements at the time began to be able to absorb oxygen and create new organisms that could actually breathe oxygen. So new oxygen breathing forms of life were created. And so that oxygen that was killing the planet was actually beneficial to these new oxygen breathing forms of life. And in the process of these oxygen breathing forms of life were releasing carbon dioxide, which was valuable to the plant life. And so actually became self-sustaining. Rather than competing, they regulated each other. So they were sustaining all of life on the planet. Had that not happened, we would probably not be here. There's a really delicate balance. The proportion of oxygen in the atmosphere eventually stabilized at 21%. If it dropped below 15%, all oxygen-breathing forms would cease to exist. And if it would rise above 25%, the entire planet would incinerate. So there's a delicate balance at this time. At that time, it was sustaining for the atmosphere of the Earth at that time, but also it's carried out through all of time. And so oxygen and carbon dioxide have this tremendous kind of dance that they do back and forth. Everything constantly moves and transforms. You know, like the wind. if you look at the winds and the clouds, you know that it's just a matter of air heating up and cooling down. And as air heats up, it expands, so it pushes cold air out of the way. Well, when the cold air gets pushed so far, it contracts, condenses, and then begins to at some point push back again. And so we have wind moving back and forth. We also know that heat has an effect on carbon dioxide and oxygen in the air, creating the water cycle. So as it evaporates water and it comes into the atmosphere, eventually it cools down and it begins to mix again with oxygen again, and it comes back down as rain. All these things are happening as this dance of carbon dioxide and oxygen. And they're really valuable to us because, of course, we breathe oxygen. Well, the early life forms of bacteria were simple one-cell organisms. And these one-cell organisms began to combine with other elements to create more complex organs. And they needed nutrition to survive, so they needed to transform to be able to attract nutrients to themselves. And so they began to create tendrils and things so that they could, like plants, can reach up towards the sun for its nutrients, or it can actually put roots down in and draw nutrients from the ground. And so all the life on the earth began to transform in ways that allowed it to attract good towards it, and also allowed it to protect itself from the rays of the sun, which, since there was no ozone at that time, it had to protect itself from those harmful rays. So they actually eventually developed mobility and were able to move away from danger and toward benefits like food. And since they have mobility, they can crawl up on the land and carry that carbon dioxide across the land as a symbiotic relationship with plant-based life. So you see there's transformations happening all over the place that are consistent with helping everybody and the whole system to survive. So I think it could be said that at a fundamental level, plants and animals are created simply to transform oxygen and carbon dioxide, well, in the beginning stages anyway, to support and sustain a delicate balance with one another. And we transform elements and chemicals to the benefit of the entire planet. Life is all about transforming and evolving to sustain and protect ourselves and to foster growth. We've learned how to harvest and nourish the plants on the earth to be able to eat and to live. And it's interesting that if we harvest all the plants on the planet, there will be no more oxygen. So we're actually doing ourselves a disservice by eating too much. Well, plant life, plants are good for you, but anyway. And also if the plants decrease, we lose oxygen. If we stop producing carbon dioxide, the plants will cease to be. There's a definite balance going on there. I think there's also a new potential form of senses. Well, let me talk about that first. The human senses, the 5 senses eventually developed as tools to sustain and protect, like sight, what allowed us to be able to see so we don't walk over a cliff or bump into things that are harmful to us. And hearing was allowed us to hear things of danger coming toward us, and also allowed us to listen for prey and things to be able to attract our food sources as well as protect ourselves. But I think the new idea of a human faculty of intelligence and communication may have evolved as a result of transformations through history. So I think this idea of communication is another sense. And I'll call it a sixth sense, not a psychic sense, but another sixth sense. Fritjof Capra in his book talks about how humans have much longer gestational periods than other animals, even other primates. And they need significantly more time to develop into puberty and adulthood than other animals. You notice in almost all the animal kingdom, things are either hatched or birthed, and they almost immediately are able to walk and move around. In a very short time, they're pretty much on their own. But humans actually take years to develop. And they take a lot of nurturing through the adults to the children. Capra postulates this. He said this is possibly a result of birth defects in primates. At one time, there was a birth defect in a primate that caused it to take much longer time for the infant to develop. And so therefore, after that birth defect, it continued to happen over and over again. And so he suggests that humans are not only descended from primates, we are birth defects of primates. In fact, he says the missing link may just be a birth defect that happened, creating humanity as we are. Now, I prefer to think of us as a beneficial transformation than a birth defect, but you can see it how you want to. Now, humans need nourishment and are dependent on developing strong bonds of relationship all their lives because we communicate with each other. And this communication is based on knowledge and intelligence. It's an essential non-physical interaction. And as I see it, a new sense, a sixth sense, it's a mental sense. It's a mental intellectual security system. We rely heavily on shared information to protect and take care of each other. And I believe this is a transformation that occurred, allowing us to have yet another way to move through life securely and effectively. In Science of Mind, we know that the value and efficacy of using universal energy and intelligence is very valuable to us. Could it be that this sixth sense, this intellectual communication tool, is a transition or a transformation of our spiritual nature that we've quite often taken advantage of or taken for granted? We don't usually combine our mental, intellectual senses with the other five senses, but maybe we've evolved to the point where we can recognize the full value of this sense of communication. Maybe we have transformed and evolved to another level of life. We've transformed, and like bacteria in the primordial soup couldn't have imagined reaching out and stepping freely onto dry land, we can scarcely imagine what our next step in evolution may be.
Wow. Take a breath. Are you still open receptors here now? Okay, so what does this have to do with you and your life? Here's your one-word answer. Everything. Everything. As you look at that story, 4 billion years worth of life, all God, nothing but one universal spirit, evolving and transforming over time, how could we possibly look at all that intermingling, and not believe that we are of God, that we have that power to transform even just our own life? We do. We absolutely do. So we had our talk title, and one morning this week, when we woke up, David said, I need to talk to you, I'll be right back. He got up and left, and he came back, and so I'm lying there thinking, how exciting. It isn't me saying, oh, I want to talk to you, it's him. What is he going to talk about? Something from childhood, or something for our future, or what is he going to talk about? It's going to be such an emotional, revealing talk that he's bringing up. And he comes back and he tells me this story that you just heard. And at first I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? Why does he think I want to hear about life 4 billion years ago? Okay, you're his wife. Eliminate that thought and go with him. This is obviously important to him if he wanted to have a chat about it. So I listened. And the more I listened, the more I saw the entanglement that quantum calls it. Entanglement is a good word. Entanglement of life. We are not separate beings, even though we look like it and sometimes feel like it. Sometimes we feel alone. Sometimes we feel unsuccessful or defeated. We are not, ever. We are one as the one. And so there are, in science of mind, what we call core concepts. And I haven't used that word for a while. And as I was listening to David, I thought, oh my gosh, how can I not absolutely love this story? Look at the oneness that I personally have in this story. If not for all those other things, I wouldn't be in this form at least. It took all of that to get to where we are today. We have a new responsibility to step into it, to accept it, to embrace it, and to live it meaningfully. It's a co-mingling and an interconnectedness with each other and with whatever it is that you set as your goal at the beginning of this. With 4 billion years behind you, you know you have the power of oneness back of you to support that goal. And in the realm of things, your goal might even seem a little small now. I know mine did when I started thinking about it. But that thinking that it was small makes it more attainable, more easily attainable. The other idea David alluded to, but that really stepped forward to me for this, was the idea of balance. Everything in life must be balanced in order for it to be eternal. And the core concept of balance is about form reciprocates thought. Form in our lives reciprocates thought, mind action. What we give, we get. And so all of life, including way back then with those elements, we're designing a balancing act in life to sustain, to progress, to grow, and to thrive. And as we often say, and science supports, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change form. You are energy. You cannot be destroyed. You can change form. And if you work toward it and it doesn't materialize, then work it again. Work it in a new pattern of mental thinking. So, this week, get your Ms. Frizzle on. Get creative and open to the magnificence of transformation that is uniquely you. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
All right then. Oh, I forgot one little thing. I just have to say this. This is an example of it. And some of you will relate. Do you anyone remember getting these little things in
Yes.
as a little gift one Sunday? And I don't know about you, but I went home and I tried and tried and tried to get mine to work, and I couldn't. And I thought, well, I guess mine's broken. David walked through and he said, oh, honey, there's a little piece of paper inside it. And you have to take that little piece of paper out because it's a resistor to the battery. So we took the little piece of paper out, and then it worked. And that's like us. You got yours on your keychain. You must have taken you took your resistor off, right? And that is a part of that story too. Stop resisting and transform into your unique self, and so it is.
So,